From Nerd Church here. Okay, this is the introduction that's going to get pinned because everything else I have ever posted introducing myself is the footnote to this. And I might even need to write some more footnotes, I don't know, but this is the main text, okay? So, you walk in, it's 2026, I'm teaching your Religion 100 course, and I have to explain who I am. And I've decided to get really super personal with the class and explain, you may be asking, how did I get here? This is a story I'm going to tell you. Okay. In 1995, I sat down in Religion 100 taught by Dr. Mark Woodward. Well, I was taking History 313 taught by Brian Grattan, who taught me how to read a book and really read a book for argument. He taught me how to do text critical scholarship on modern scholarly literature, and I was good at it. But I sat down, and for a long time I thought I wanted to do American history because American history is freaking awesome. And but I got in Religion 100 and I found out that there was a way to study religion, to study everybody's religion and try to put things together about what it means to be human. And I also saw someone who was demonstrably making business majors into better people, because no one who ever took Religion 100 from Mark Woodward, or indeed learned Religion 100 from the textbook that he wrote, is someone who, when somebody walks into their classroom and says, or their office, if they're an HR manager, and they say, Eid's coming up, I'm going to need to take the day off, is that going to be a problem? They won't say, what's Eid? They're going to say, Eid Mubarak. And then they're going to say, forgive me, I know this is a really dumb question, but I'm not a Muslim. Is this Eid al-Adha or Eid al-Fitr? Because I lose track because they move around in the day. That is what Mark Woodward gave to the world. He gave to the world probably 500,000 people who would have that conversation. But they would also have that conversation if the person who walked in there was a Jew, or a Hindu, or a Buddhist, or even a Catholic. And I wanted to do that job, but I knew that in order to get that job, because that was the job I wanted, because I wanted to be someone who could teach Religion 100 while I worked on doing my own pet project research on the side. And in 1995, that job still existed. That job does not exist in a university in 2026 because I know people who have tried to have that job and they have failed. Or if they do have that job, they are living in Alaska or Alabama or someplace like that where they are desperate for anybody with a PhD who will move there. So basically, if I sound weird and overly familiar when I'm talking to people who are in their 50s, or even people who, and sometimes I sound like I'm kind of talking down to people who are maybe in their 30s, that's because if I had had the career, that's because I'm your age, right? So basically, if you're on BibleTube right now, or rather, if you were on Religious Studies Tube, I was either in graduate school with you, I TA'd one of your upper division classes, or I taught your Religion 100 class. Because if my life had gone just a little bit different, that would have been my life. And now I see a way back that I can have the life that I could have wanted because people who were a little bit more desperate than I am to get the word out, or who were able to stick it out for just a little bit longer, made religion for breakfast. And they made and useful charts and all the other introductory things that I couldn't figure out a way to do, because when I was in graduate school, the technological infrastructure did not exist. And when I tried to make the case that it was possible to get a really good idea of how people were practicing their religion by reading advice columns, like by reading Ask the Imam, Ask the Rabbi, Ask the Priest. When I tried to make that case, I was told, that's a really cute idea, but that's not academically respectable, and you know and I know that you need a job. So that didn't happen. And also, let me put it to you this way. Dr. Megan Lewis and me have the same last name, and we have had the same number of full-term pregnancies. And she is hosting a podcast with Dr. Bart Ehrman, and I am making snippy little clickbaity videos trying to attract Bart Ehrman's attention, because I don't need Megan Lewis's job. But I have some things that I need to say to Bart Ehrman that if somebody had said them to Bart Ehrman, even now, if I say them, I could actually make the world a better place and make biblical scholarship more accessible for Catholics. Because ultimately, what I'm trying to do is give 18-year-old me the job that she could have had. Because, let me tell you the other part of the story. Okay, Mark Woodward, brilliant professor, brilliant Islamicist. He's the smartest Islamicist that you have never heard of. He's a specialist in Indonesia. He speaks Indonesian so well that he can take a text written in Indonesian, read it, and provide a simultaneous translation in English as he is reading it. If he has read it before, that's how good he is. He's really good. But that means he knows about Sunnis. And that means that in his head and in my head, the default version of Islam, the normal kind, is Sunni Islam. And that affected my mental architecture, not in a bad way. I don't hate Shias. But there's a level where there are things about Shia Islam that will always seem just a little bit weird to me, because I wasn't taught that that was the default. I wasn't taught it was bad. I wasn't taught it was evil. I wasn't taught that it was the default Islam. And statistically, he was even right. So, basically, I was talking about Megan Lewis and why I'm not Megan Lewis. I'm Katie Lewis. I'm Katie Lewis because I had the same number of full-term pregnancies that Megan Lewis had, and I have had one fewer kid, and I crashed out in graduate school and she didn't. And I was able to see really obviously that the reason for that, well, okay, she's smarter than I am, and she's better looking than I am, but also she made a lot better choice when she decided who she wanted to get married and have those 4 full-term pregnancies with. And that was the other thing, was that I was thrown into academia at a time where I knew that ultimately I was going to have to choose between the people that I wanted to have in my personal life and having a career. And ultimately I chose the people, and I don't know if I made the right choice or not. I do know that there are a lot of people who didn't have exactly what I needed, who are also going to be teaching, who are also going to be substitute teaching school and trying to run a YouTube channel on the as a side hustle. And they made all the right choices. And that's what religious studies YouTube has done for me, is it's told me that, it wasn't really my fault. I was just not born in exactly the right year, in exactly the right family, and I wasn't able to explain things in exactly the right way. Because let me tell you why I am filming this as I'm walking. I'm filming this as I'm walking because I'm walking to church. Because it will make me feel happy and settled, and I will be more productive throughout my day if I spend about 5 minutes in an adoration chapel. And I'm within reasonable walking distance of a Catholic church. I am also, but that Catholic church is on the corner opposite the Arizona Museum of Natural History. If I had had the childhood that I could have had if Father Carl was not at Queen of Peace, and, well, people found out in about 2001 why there were a lot of people who didn't want to go to Queen of Peace, and it wasn't because they feared the Spanish Mass. They were worried about Opus Dei and the Legionaries of Christ and Father Carl, and what would happen to a girl like me if Opus Dei had gotten their hands on her. And the answer for that would have been that that I would have gotten chewed up and spit out somewhere in Italy, speaking bad Italian, with nothing to show for myself, except some really good stories and the hope that maybe I could sit down with Gareth Gore and he would give me somebody who could help me write my autobiography. That could have been my life too. So, but in a healthy world where people were sad when where there was no person in the world who did not feel a little bit of relief or a little bit of vindication when Father Carl died. My family would have taken me to church, and then we would have had lunch, and we would have gone to the Natural History Museum, and that would have been my life. And that would have been the life, and that maybe even could have been the life that I gave to my children. And that meant that in 1995, when Dr. Mark Woodward said something a little bit disparaging about the Catholic Church, instead of laughing, because I knew what he was joking about, and he was right, because he was also a lapsed Catholic, I would have tone policed him. Just a little. And he would have explained why he had said what he had said. And I would have been like, okay, cool, but that's not cool. And we would have started a conversation. And eventually, I would have walked into his office and said, you know what? I think that I really want to study contemporary American Catholicism, and I want to look at the conversation between Catholicism and Mormonism in the American West, and I want to talk about the way that shaped the fundamental architecture of the way that Catholics think about ourselves and the way that Catholics think about gender and race in really fundamental ways that mean that people who are Catholic on the East Coast literally do not have the intellectual knowledge or mental architecture to understand what the Catholic Church is in the Trans Mountain West. And he would have looked at me, and inside he might have been saying, why the hell do you want to give oxygen to the Catholic Church? But you know what? If I had walked up to him in 2025 or 2026 instead of 1995 or 1996, he would have understood. And he would have supported me. And he would have helped me in every way he could. And so, but that didn't happen, and so I crashed out in graduate school. And now I'm trying to find my way back in. And I'm trying to find my way back in because at the end of the day, I almost died of cancer, so therefore this entire speech was like profound and moving and uplifting, and you're a bad person if you criticize me because I'm a cancer survivor. But I'm a 49-year-old cancer survivor, which means that basically, in the words of the poet, I got one shot because I've only got 50 years to live. But you know what? 50 years can be a really good fucking long time if I make it work. So that's why I made this channel. That's why I'm pulling in people that will make me better and smarter. And that's why I have an open invitation on my shitty little 60 subscriber YouTube channel that anybody with a PhD or an MA is willing to come on my show at any time to talk about any topic. And that's because eventually it's not going to be a piddly little 60 sub YouTube channel. And ultimately it's going to be something that I can maybe either keep doing, or I can go to a department and I can say, dude, I've been doing this on my own. Hire me and I will do this in your class, and I will do this in your college. And, you know what? That's not nothing. Anyway, it's been 17 minutes. I've gotten to church. Thank you for, sitting with me for this long. I'm Katie Lewis, Nerd Church out.